Maybe you know this chart represents the major scale or the Ionian mode, which is the same, and it's the first mode we get from the major scale. If you think so, you're right. This is part of the caged system. Inside this cage, we found all the notes we have available to play in the major scale or Ionian mode. Or maybe you know another one. Maybe you know this one. And this one is the same. This one contains the same notes as the last one, but in a different order. This is called the extended one. If so, don't worry, both are correct. And maybe you know there's a different chart for every mode. For example, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian, which is the last of the major modes. In this video we're going to focus only on the first one, the one we used to play the Ionian mode. But due to the fact that the caged version and the extended version are the same and use the same notes, we're going to put them together and melt it into one. By doing so, we're gonna get a little more space to improv. This one is just the sum of its parts, the caged and the extended, both of them in one chart. But before we start, here's a quick reminder of how to understand this chart and apply it to the fretboard. The horizontal lines numbered 1 through 6 represent the strings of your guitar. And the vertical lines represent the frets of the guitar. For example, if we have this figure, and we decide to put the red dot in the 8th fret, we'll be playing the note located on the low 6th string, 8th fret, which is the note C. If we do the same on the 10th fret, it'll be a D. On the 12th, E. On the 8th fret, but of the 5th string, F. And so on with the rest of the notes. The red dot is the root of the scale. This is the main note that the scale is named after and built from. I'm not going to put the notes' names in the charts, so you can apply these charts into other tonalities. Instead, I'm using numbers to mark the grades of the notes inside the scale, in order to know what notes we have to play more to get the sound we want. In the Ionian mode, we're going to play the root, which is the main note. We're going to play also the third. This note indicates if we are in a major or a minor tonality. And also we'll play the 7th. This note is going to be the difference between the Ionian mode and the Mixolydian mode, which we'll be seeing later on this video. I'm not going to talk about avoiding notes because it's another topic. But my advice is do not avoid any note because the scale loses its properties. Remember, not only the notes are important, also the context is important too. The backing tracks are designed to enhance the sound and properties of the modes we're going to play. The first example is in C major or C Ionian. The next mode is the Dorian mode. In order to get it, we're going to change the root from C to D, which is the next note in the scale. The notes we're going to play more are the root, the third, that in this case is located at the distance of a minor third, and therefore indicates we are dealing with a minor mode, and the 6th. This note is going to be the difference between the Aeolian mode and the Dorian mode, and creates the characteristic sound of this mode. The next example is in D Dorian minor. The next note is Phrygian, and to get it we're going to do the same as before. We're going to change the tonic to the next note, which in this case will be E. The notes we're going to play more are the root, as always. The third, that tells us again we are dealing with a minor tonality, as with the Dorian. And the second, that in this case is a minor second. This note is going to be the difference between this mode and the Aeolian. Also, this note creates the characteristic sound of this mode. The next example is in E minor Phrygian. The next mode is Lydian, so we are going to change the root again to the next note, which in this case is F. The notes we're going to play more are the root, as always, the third, that in this case is major, therefore we are dealing with a major tonality, and the raised fourth. This note is going to make the difference between this mode and the Ionian Mode, and it's going to give us the characteristic sound of the Lydian Mode. The next example is in F major Lydian. The next mode is the Mixolydian Mode, and in order to get it we're going to change the root again to the next note, which in this case will be G. The notes we're going to play more are the root, as always, the third, that tells us again we are dealing with a major tonality, and the seventh, which in this case is a minor seventh. This note is the difference between Ionian and Mixolydian, and it's going to give us the characteristic sound of this mode. The next example is in G major Mixolydian. The next mode is Aeolian, and in order to get it we're going to change again the root from G to A, which is the next note in the C major scale. The notes we're going to play more are the root, the third, there is minor and therefore a minor tonality, and the sixth, which in this case is minor. This is the difference between the Dorian Mode and the Aeolian Mode, and it's going to create the characteristic sound of this mode. The next example is in A Aeolian, or simply A minor. The next example is Locrian. This is the last one. And again, we're going to change the root to the next note, which in this case will be B. The notes we're going to play more are the root, telling us it's B Locrian, the third, that normally will tell us we are in a minor mode, but in this case it's different because of the next note. The next note is the fifth. Better say a diminished fifth, telling us we are in a diminished mode. This note is the difference between Phrygian and Locrian, and the characteristic sound of this mode. The next example is in B diminished or B Locrian. As you could see, we were able to play all the modes in one shape. We didn't have to move to the Dorian or Lydian position to get the sound of Dorian or the sound of Lydian. The only thing we do was to play the right notes in the right context. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. In the next video we'll be doing the same, but with the second shape. The second shape corresponds to the Dorian Mode. If you live in Mexico City and want to have personalized guitar lessons with me, send me a message to derekhashek@gmail.com so I can give information about it. All the backing tracks we use are available in my YouTube channel, so you can practice and study on them. See you on the next video.